David Pownall joins us now, who's standing in Peel. And of course, it's not your first time standing, but it is in Peel because you have stood at the last election for Castletown. So why the move?
I wasn't really happy with the way things were going in Castletown, and I did own property in Peel, so I decided to put my money where my mouth was and relocate to Peel, which I quite enjoy. But I still work in Castletown. But
Okay.
there are issues in Castletown that I wasn't comfortable with. The regeneration I didn't think was coming quickly enough, really.
So you're not just hopping for the by-election to go to Peel? I mean, you're not
No, I've owned property in Peel for 10 years now.
So why are you standing again? Well, what makes you want to do this?
I want to do something good, and I want to see if I can raise some awareness for cancer diagnostic on the Isle of Man. I also would like to see if I can promote better democracy on the Isle of Man. I think the idea that the Legislative Council is still voted by the MHKs, it could be better on that issue. I think the public should have more input on the Legislative Council. I also think that the MHKs could lead the way more by paying more into their pension fund before they take something out, basically.
What's been the main sort of topic you're finding on the doorstep in Peel?
Fishing. Fishing is still a great provider of incomes in Peel, and the Queenie quota, I believe actually yesterday there was some news on it, and I know the lads in Peel, they can land 120 bags a week, but I think something happened yesterday and now it might even be diminished, and they're not earning enough money to survive really on Manx Queenie fleet. And I think that there are certain areas of the Isle of Man waters that they're being abused by boats from other jurisdictions, and I think the policing of these areas could be better. I know all the fishing boats have detectors on their vessels, and when they go into these areas, of course, DEFA know that the fishing boat is in that area, but some of the fishermen are quite canny at knocking these devices off. So DEFA know that there's a fishing boat in the box in the Queenie area, but they can't say for sure which fishing boat it is.
Okay, that's interesting. That's something different from other people, because other people talk about sewerage. Have you not found that as a point?
Sewerage, I think, is it's almost like a bread and butter thing on the manifesto. People talk about parking and sewerage. Sewerage is definitely up there in most areas on the Isle of Man, and I think they've already got a plan for the sewerage in Peel, which I would fully support.
And the expansion of Peel over the last decade, really. I mean, the amount of people who've moved there, because there's obviously been a lot of housing there. Any view on that? Yeah,
I've been standing outside the co-op evenings trying to gauge the support of the public, and there was one lady came and said to me that she had 5 or 6 derelict houses around her, and we should concentrate our minds on thinking about doing up the older properties before we expand further out of Peel. Soon we'll be heading out towards the cemetery. It'd be a sad thing for us, I think, if we actually meet the cemetery with our property expansion.
So do you want to stop building in Peel?
No, I think it's a positive thing to always look towards progress and all the rest of it, but I think that there are properties in Peel that could be renovated, and people could live in them. We don't have to keep expanding, really, you know.
On a national ticket, the government as a whole, how do you rate how they've done over the last 4 years?
I think the government is still looking towards Westminster for the lead, and I don't really think that is a good thing, because I think sooner or later the UK, they'll probably pull out of the EU. Which could have fantastic trade implications. I mean, everybody talks about we don't want to be in the EU, and I accept that. But have they thought what will happen if the UK leave the EU? We could be ostracised. We could suffer with our trade. So I think the Isle of Man has to look forward and think that the UK might pull out of the EU, but we still have to trade with the EU. So we have to be thinking ahead.
What to negotiate our own position?
To negotiate our own position.
Do you think that's even possible?
No, I don't think it's impossible, but I think we should also look towards Scotland and Northern Ireland, because I think the future for Scotland is that they could get sort of independence. They might want to not have much to do with the EU, but we must continue trading with the EU, and there seems to be this sort of, we don't want to be part of the EU, and the EU might one day just say, well, that's fine, you're out. But that could have massive implications for trade.
So, I mean, if you had been in MHK for over the last of this period now, I mean, how would you have sat in there? Would you have felt comfortable? Would you have backed the government on most issues, or would you have been a bit of a rebel on the backbenches, or would you have even been a minister? I mean, where would you do you see yourself fitting in?
I certainly don't think it's helpful being a rebel. I know there are lots of causes to be a rebel, but I don't think it's to be negative. I would have supported the government. I don't really see, though, how the government, the chief minister, can appoint somebody, for example, to the education department, and then as soon as that MHK decides, well, that wasn't actually the policy that my electorate voted me in on, the chief minister has to say, well, then you must leave, because the MHKs must remember that they've been voted in by their electorate. If I was voted in Peel, it's by the Peel electorate. It's not by the Onken electorate, so you have to give them some sort of consideration, really. And I think it's interesting to note the way we've had issues with the electoral roll recently. I don't think many people would know that in actual fact to stand as an MHK, or indeed be an MHK, you don't even have to be in the electoral roll. And the democracy side, with the elephant in the room, I think, is the Legislative Council. We must get the public involved with the voting in of the Legislative Council, because we've got the oldest continuous parliament in the world. We go around telling people that, but in actual fact, Tynwald is made up of a group of three. You've got the Lord of Man, you've got the MHKs, and you've got the MLCs, Legislative Council. But the Legislative Council are, in my opinion, certainly not democratic in any way, shape or form. But I still think that they have a great role to play, but they should be voted in more democratically. And I think that the government at the moment, it doesn't feel very democratic.
So you have no ambitions to be an MLC, at some point in the future, like the reason this by-elections come up?
I think that the answer to that is one thing at a time. I wouldn't turn down the position of an MLC or something like that, but I want to be voted in by the public with democracy.
Okay, you're talking about health, democracy and environment, all these sort of main issues that everyone else is saying.
Yeah.
What makes you stand out? I mean, have you got any particular points that you're raising on the doorstep?
What I'm doing is trying to find out what the people of Peel want. I think that the MHK should be able to think on his feet, but he is the mouthpiece for the electorate, and it's very, very important to find out what the electorate want, because I could put anything on my manifesto, and there isn't much difference from me being like a dictator. This is how I see my world, but really you must go out and you must talk to the people, and that's what I've been doing. I've been standing outside the co-op in Peel, and I've had a lot of stick over that. That's
this is your point, is it? You're staying there.
And I do see a lot of people, and some people have whinged about, oh, he's staying outside the co-op. Well, what about ShopRite? Well, ShopRite is alongside. Now, I know there's one further up the road, and I will stand up there. But I'm meeting real people.
But you're knocking on doors as well, are you?
I've been knocking on doors all day. I was out on a fishing boat the other day. I went out to work for one day on a fishing boat to find out how our lads get on, and I had a very Hollywood kind of day. It was flat calm, and there was lots of sunshine, and there was lots of fresh air, and we absolutely filled our nets with Queenies, and those guys worked hard. They're starting at 4 o'clock in the morning, they're finishing about 8 o'clock at night, and they go non-stop. They did 6 shoots for Queenies, and we must protect the fishermen of Peel.
Okay. And last minute, you got the TT on your sort of introduction letter.
Yeah.
What particularly do you want to say about the TT?
I'm just a little bit disappointed. The TT's been going for over 100 years, and I think that we could have took a little bit of the revenue from the TT and passed it over to high performance track on the Isle of Man, because I'm concerned that the high performance machines, Yamaha and Honda, in future, they might not say, look, I'm putting a bike in the TT because there's too many people getting killed. I love the TT and I'll always continue watching it, and I think it's a great festival for the Isle of Man, but I think that we could, on the back of the TT, to run parallel with the TT, have our own Formula One style track, which could be world renowned, And we did do years ago, and then it was taken off us. We could get it back with the Isle of Man name. That'd be great.
much.